Hi, I'm Carly Toller, and I'm the presenter for this week's debate on whether red tape is helpful or harmful and its connection to the federal bureaucracy. To start us off, I want to connect this topic to the federal bureaucracy. Red tape refers to the rules, regulations, and steps that government agencies must follow to make sure laws are applied fairly and consistently. It is a big part of how bureaucracy works. Agencies like the Federal Aviation Administration, the Environmental Protection Agency, and the Department of Health and Human Services use these processes to make sure decisions are made on clear guidelines and not personal opinions or quick choices. In our readings and class discussions, we've talked about how bureaucracy is meant to create structure, hold people accountable, and prevent the misuse of power. Red tape plays a major role in doing that by setting clear standards, keeping power in check, and making sure there's transparency in how decisions are made. But these same rules that are meant to protect can also cause major problems. A good example comes from the article on commercial spaceflight, which talks about how companies like SpaceX have built new rocket technology faster than the FAA can approve its launch. This shows how the push and pull of red tape can happen. On one side, it protects safety, national security, and the environment, but on the other, it can slow down progress, raise costs, and make it harder for industries to move forward. That's exactly why this debate is so important. How much regulation is needed to keep things safe and fair, and when does it become too much? Is red tape something that protects us, or is it something that holds us back? On the helpful side of this debate, Rebecca will explain how red tape helps prevent corruption and abuse of power, and Lizzie will talk about how it ensures accountability and consistency. On the harmful side, Michelle will focus on how red tape creates extra costs and burdens, and Hannah will highlight how it doesn't affect everyone equally, often putting more weight on some groups than others.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Browski, and I am arguing that red tape is helpful. In case of red tape is helpful because it prevents corruption and abuse of power by keeping power in check. Red tape is beneficial because it allows a slowed down process for the government to make sure nothing is being done that is shady. When things take a longer time, there is a smaller chance for illegal activities, shortcuts, or cheating to take action. This keeps people honest and makes sure nothing is going to be done that could impact our government and forever change it for the worse. Red tape also keeps power in check. This allows people to follow the law precisely to what the founding fathers wanted centuries ago. This helps make sure that leaders follow the law and do not act out on the whim. No matter what the government wants done, like approve a project, spend money, or pass another bill, there are certain steps that need to be taken to make sure that they are approved the correct way. With red tape and spaceflight, it is keeping people safe to make sure that the rocket does not just take off without meeting their regulations. Red taping not only protects the people, but also environment and the public for their public safety. Red tape helps people that are higher up and think that the law cannot tell them what to do so that they can be put in their place. Within our textbook, red tape is there to drain the swamp, like Ronald Reagan, Donald Trump, and Pat Buchanan all tried to do. They argued that with draining the swamp, it helps reduce the ineffectiveness and swell of the federal bureaucracy. Basically, this means that it helps minimize and prevent corruption and dishonest people in the government. For as long as red tape has been around, it needs to stay consistent in our lives to make sure laws are being passed correctly and lawfully. Overall, while the process is very slow and could possibly be done quicker, it is done the way it is for a reason. If something needs to be done quicker, red tape will still be used, but the process can be sped up.
Hi, my name is Lizzie Davis, and I'm debating on how red tape is helpful. A lot of times when it comes to bureaucracy, people say we should cut the red tape, and while the paperwork and delay can definitely be frustrating, the red tape actually serves a much deeper purpose. As The Nation explains in his article, The Praise of Red Tape isn't just there for the sake of being difficult, it's part of a larger system built to protect the rule of law. These rules and procedures make sure that no one, not even powerful government officials, can act on impulse or personal bias. Without red tape, decisions can be made based on someone's mood, influence, or even corruption. But when rules are clearly written and consistently applied, it creates a structured process where every person is treated the same, whether you're rich or poor, connected or not. That's where consistency really matters. It means the same rules apply no matter who you are or where you're from. You don't have to guess how to get a permit, access a benefit, or appeal a decision. You know what the steps are, and more importantly, you know that those same steps apply to everyone else too. In a lot of ways, consistency is what makes trust in government possible. If a rule changes depending on who you're talking to or what day it is, people stop believing in fairness. But when procedures are stable and predictable, it builds public confidence because you know that you're being judged by standards, not by someone's personal opinion. Douglas Amy, in the article The Case for Bureaucracy, emphasizes this point. He explains that bureaucracy exists to treat everyone equally under the law. That consistency protects people from favoritism, discrimination, or abuse of power, which are serious problems in places where bureaucracies are weak or easily manipulated. Think about it. In areas like public health, education, immigration, or even getting a driver's license, consistency makes the system functional. It allows governments to scale services across millions of people without chaos. You wouldn't want to live in a society where one office tells you one thing and another gives you a completely different answer for the same issue. That's how confusion, frustration, and injustice spread. People sometimes complain that officials won't bend the rules, but that might actually be a sign of integrity. It means the system isn't being manipulated behind the scenes. It means someone can't just call in a favor or bribe their way to the better outcome. Everyone has to follow the same process. And legally, red tape provides important protections. It creates paper trails, review procedures, and appeal systems, so if something were to go wrong, there's a way to challenge it. That's not just helpful, it's essential for accountability and transparency. In a democracy, the rules aren't there to block us, they're there to protect us. Without red tape, you lose predictability, you lose fairness, you lose the right to question decisions made against you. So yes, while red tape might feel slow, it's often slow on purpose, because taking the time to follow a fair, consistent process is better than rushing to a result that only benefits a few. Without rules, fairness disappears, and without consistency, fairness can't survive.
Hello, my name is Michelle Rueda.
I'm Hannah Patterson, and we're debating the harmful side of red tape.
Let's talk about one of the major downsides of red tapes: excessive compliance, costs, and burdens. According to Wikipedia, red tape refers to excessive or redundant regulations or bureaucratic procedures that create financial or time-compliant costs. These costs and burdens tend to fall especially hard on smaller firms or individuals, those who don't have the resources or economies of scale to deal with all the paperwork and bureaucracy. In other words, they're the ones who feel it the most. For example, in New York City, the Comptroller's Red Tape Commission found that many small businesses had to deal with painfully slow approval processes, sometimes waiting 6 months or more just to go get permits. The process was so difficult that many businesses had to hire private expeditors, essentially paid intermediaries, just to navigate the system. That same report also found that nearly half of business owners felt they weren't treated fairly by the system, and more than 57% said that city agencies didn't clearly communicate the rules or expectations. All of this shows how red tape isn't just an annoyance, it can create real costs in terms of time, money, uncertainty, and complexity for people who just try to engage with the government.
One major problem with red tape is that it doesn't affect everyone equally. In fact, it often ends up hurting the most vulnerable people the most. Stricter regulations and complex systems can be especially tough on small businesses, new startups, low-income individuals and families, and even local governments. These groups usually don't have the time, money, or staff to deal with all the bureaucracy, so they're at a disadvantage from the start. There's also evidence that red tape makes things harder within the public sector. According to the research cited in a Wikipedia article, too much bureaucracy can actually reduce job satisfaction and performance among public workers, especially in areas like child welfare or education. There's also research mentioned in the Wikipedia article showing that red tape can actually make things harder inside the public sector itself, not just for the people trying to access the services provided, but also for the people who are working within the system. Excessive bureaucracy tends to lower job satisfaction among public employees. When workers are overwhelmed by paperwork, confusing procedures, or even slow approval processes, it becomes harder for them to focus on the core parts of their job. That can lead to frustration, burnout, and even higher turnover, especially in the fields that were stated above, like child welfare and education, which the work is already demanding. In these areas, red tape doesn't just make the job harder, it can directly affect outcomes for the people being served. For example, if social workers or teachers are spending hours on administrative tasks instead of working directly with kids or families, that has the real consequences. The systems become less efficient, and the people who rely on the system end up paying the price. So even though the regulations are often created to protect people or keep systems running smoothly, red tape can actually end up making life harder, especially for the people who are already struggling the most.